Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. She is a relationship coach, no other than Miss Amber Lavin. Welcome to
Hello,
Book
happy to be
101.
here.
Yes, Book 101. Welcome to Book 101, Miss Amber. And can you please introduce more about yourself?
Hi, yes, I am a relationship coach located in Asheville, North Carolina, and I help women find authentic love.
Indeed, authentic love. People love, love, love. So, Miss Amber, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge to the world. What do people misunderstand about relationships most? Can you tell us about this, Miss Amber?
Yeah, people under misunderstand a lot in relationships, but I think one of the biggest misconceptions about relationships and dating is that people base their ideas off of movies and TV, that relationships purely are based off, especially in the dating phase, off of that initial spark and attraction, and don't take into account alignment and values and our own actual personal trauma or stories, or how we might be um, recreating patterns that are actually unhelpful for us.
Yes. And good good answer, Miss Amber. Very well said. Very well said. What's the biggest myth about relationships that you and find most people believe?
A really big myth that comes up in the work that I do is that people will think that there's no good people out there, or that um, all men are the same, or that mostly it's just finding someone. And they kind of tend to, and this is a natural human instinct, but people can tend to place external blame on others rather than doing the internal work to figure out why some of these things might be happening. So that's typically the biggest myth, is that it's out there and not in here.
Miss Amber, why do you think so many people misunderstand what makes relationships truly work?
I think a lot of it is upbringing. Typically, um, I think that it's evolving and changing, but a lot of people were raised to believe that relationships are a certain way. Many people might be raised in homes where the relationship between their parents or their caregivers was, there might have been a lot of arguing, or even like silent tension. And so people perceive that that's how relationships are supposed to be, even if logically they're like, I want to be in a loving, healthy partnership. There's just parts of them that have created a story that that's how relationships are. And so then they go out into the world and they might get into toxic relationships and not realize that there's actually a neural pathway created to continue to be in pain in relationships. And there's definitely a way out.
Happy and loving relationship that everybody wants. How has a social media distorted our understanding of healthy relationships?
Yeah, social media plays a big role in all mental health issues, but especially with relationships. In general, social media just gives us a false understanding of what reality is. I would say the internet in general gives us a false understanding of what reality is. And if you're on social media and you see other people connecting really easily because they're posting pictures of different experiences or relationships, you're like, oh, they've got it figured out, or, I'm missing something. And it just creates this perpetual loneliness of like, I don't know how to do this. Other people know how to do this. But this is something that everyone struggles with, is how to connect and have healthy, loving partnerships. And so, not feeling like you're alone in this, and that even if you see it on Instagram or whatever, there's a lot of people who don't know how to navigate relationships or how to communicate effectively with their partner.
Indeed, indeed. So let's talk about the love and expectations, Miss Amber. Why is the concept of love at first sight potentially harmful to a relationships?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm a big believer in the value of chemistry and um, that spark. But what can happen is that people may feel that feeling and not
Yes.
realize that it might be coming from a place of um, unsafety, and that their perception of a relationship is that they saw a lot of fighting growing up. And so they meet someone who might be an unsafe person and not realize that that dopamine hit isn't actually um, true, authentic love connection. Um, Love at first sight is really, it's just a lot of chemicals and hormones, and they're great, and being attracted to someone is wonderful, and we all want to be with someone that we're highly attracted to. But if you purely base your decisions off of that feeling, it's really a risk. It could be, it's a roll of the dice with that. But there's a way to date with much more intention and understanding of your internal landscape, so that you can choose a partner that's going to be a match for your life.
Yes, indeed. Too much oxytocin in the body. So, Miss Amber, what's the most unrealistic expectations people commonly bring into relationships?
Yeah, a lot of people typically go into a relationship thinking that people are going to automatically know what you want, or know who you are and how to meet your needs. And that is just really a dangerous way to be going into a relationship, especially if you meet and it's that love at first sight and you don't actually know if this person aligns with your life. And then you're in a relationship with them and you're expecting them to know what you want and know how to meet your needs, and then become incredibly resentful at them because they're not meeting those needs. And that creates a lot of discomfort. And in the work that I do with women, we talk a lot about being very clear, men too, being very clear about who you are and what you want, what your boundaries are. Because the earlier you communicate that in a relationship, the more healthy your relationship is going to be. Because someone knows, like, oh, this person likes to get a text first thing in the morning. Um, and so you're able to have those needs met rather than having this unrealistic expectation of, this person's just going to naturally understand me.
Certainly, totally agree with you, Miss Amber. So, how does the happily ever after myth set couples up for disappointment?
Yeah, it creates this idea that this is all supposed to just work out and be fine. And relationships are complicated in their work, and it doesn't have to necessarily be toxic or draining work or a lot of fighting type work, but it does take work of understanding who your partner is, who you are, what they need, what you need. And over time, it does become easy. If you do that work in the beginning, I think you do have a happily ever after. But that idea that there's just, you meet cute, from the movies, and it's all fine and everything works out, is really damaging to our culture as a whole, because it just really negates um, all of the actual foundational things that we need to do when we're meeting a partner. There's all these ideas about optimization, like optimizing your sleep and your eating, and there's really not enough optimization put on dating and how to date and how to authentically connect with other people.
Miss Amber, let's talk about the communication and conflict. Why do most couples think they are communicating well when they are actually not?
Yeah, a lot of people are, kind of self-absorbed, which is normal. We all are like thinking about ourselves, and um, that's normal. That's okay. But many people, when they're in a conflict, they're only seeing things from their perspective, and that makes sense. But there's so many different realities of what happens, and 10 people could have different perceptions. 10 people could watch a crime and have different perceptions of what happened. And so when people are in conflict, they're coming from their own viewpoint, and they're very narrowed of I know what happened, I know how I feel, and I'm not open to exploring what might be happening. And really it takes both people who have done internal work to understand themselves and be open to understanding someone else in order to have good communication, in order to be open to someone else's perspective of, oh, okay, you're seeing it this way, I'm seeing it this way. Let's figure this out together because I love you and I want to be with you. Um, a lot of times people come in and they're like, this is what happened. I'm right and you're wrong. It's this very othering idea. And many people, when they're in that situation, they also get very triggered and become like in a very heightened state. And typically, what needs to happen if that happens is that you need to calm down and regulate your nervous system, because if we're triggered and we're in fight or flight mode, there is no way we're going to be able to communicate with someone else or figure out a problem. Um, so that's typically what tends to happen whenever couples are trying to solve problems or some common pitfalls.
What's the most misunderstood aspect of conflict in relationships?
One of the most misunderstood aspects of conflict in relationships is that that uh, kind of similar to what I was mentioning, that that you're right and the other person's wrong, and a lot of times people are just trying to convince the other person, like, see it my way, like understand my way. And there's just there has to be some sort of meeting in the middle with those situations. There can't just be one person as right and one person as wrong. And another aspect of this is that people need to learn how to have conflict. Um, so that can be a pretty big misconception as well, is that we just assume that we know how to do this skill. And this is a skill that really most of us need to learn how to do. There's many different aspects to conflict resolution. There's people who spend their entire lives in professions trying to understand conflict resolution. And so this isn't something that's easy to do, but it is something, it is a skill that can be learned and can be taught, but it might take some investigation. And once you start doing it, if you're in a long term relationship and this is an area where you struggle, um, nonviolent communication, which is you can take it online. It's a great course to figure out how to communicate effectively with your partner.
Indeed, communication, people. Communication is the number one key to success to have a good relationship. Miss Amber, as a relationship coach, what are your short term and long term goals?
Yeah, some of my short term goals as a relationship coach is to continue to offer workshops. I've been doing that more recently. I've been offering a lot more free workshops so people can access this information. I don't think it's something that's talked about enough. Um, and then my long term goal is that I would love to eventually host retreats and build community, mostly of hosts of women who are really trying to change some of these patterns, men as well, but I primarily work with women. I really just want to start a revolution, essentially, of how we date and how we relate. Because I think that this is really the beginning of everything. It's the beginning of a marriage, it's the beginning of having children. How you connect with your partner is how your children are going to see you connecting with your partner. And then it's how they're going to connect with their partner. So, this is really the groundwork for building fulfilling lives.
Indeed, a revolution to have a successful relationship. And good luck to your goals, Miss Amber. And what would be your advice for those people out there who want to be a relationship coach too?
If someone is wanting to be a relationship coach, I think my first advice would be to make sure that you are very clear about what you have done to heal your own relationship and to heal how you connect with people so that you're offering advice that comes from a place of understanding and that you've done it. And then coaching in general, I think for me, what's been the most helpful thing is to understand that you have to continue to put your message out there and continue to be visible to other people. People don't necessarily, look up, working with a relationship coach. You kind of have to show up and tell people what you do and tell people what you offer.
Indeed. Thank you for your advice, Miss Amber. If you could correct just one widespread misunderstanding about relationships, what would it be?
Hmm. Yeah, I think it would be that initial spark isn't all there is when you first meet someone. That initial spark isn't necessarily means that you're meeting your soulmate, because that can lead to being with someone who's maybe not in alignment with your life and where you're heading. It's really like a chemical reaction. And as I've mentioned, it's so important to have chemistry and be attracted to someone. But if you only base your decisions on those chemical reactions in your body, you could potentially end up in a long term relationship with someone who completely is not in alignment with your life and who you are. And that experience then can lead to a lot of arguing and fighting and discontent. And then you're in a position to where you potentially have children or have a house together, and it can just cause a lot of strife to not be able to fully understand yourself before you get into a relationship.
Indeed, a lot of it strife, people. If you will not figure out what is happening, Miss Amber, before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, book 101 review for sure is fifth season, comedy 101 in second season, food 101 in fifth season too. Geography 101 and Love Letters in third season, and Mental Health 101 is my baby podcast, people. Movie 101 review and Music 101 in each fourth season, and Science 101 and Sex 101 in each first season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. Miss Amber, what's the most surprising lesson you've learned about what makes relationships succeed?
Hmm. Something that I've learned that makes relationships just be more effective and seem more easy to navigate is the idea of repair, which the idea of repair is essentially coming back together after a conflict. Studies have shown that repair is a significant indicator of a lasting relationship. And that's so surprising because people think that a healthy relationship, there's no conflict, but that's not true. A healthy relationship does involve conflict. It's knowing how to talk about conflict and then being able to repair and come back together and have closeness and intimacy and resolution, and also figure out like, hey, what are we going to do next time when this comes up? So it's really not about just even keel, no one ever gets upset, no one ever blames each other. Maybe there's some people who have that and that's good for them, but most relationships, most healthy relationships, are about understanding where the conflict comes from, being able to talk about conflict when it comes up, being able to repair whenever you need to come back together.
Miss Amber Lavin, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge to the world. So, can you please invite our listeners to support your coaching itself?
Yeah, you can connect with me on truenaturecounseling.net. And I also have a handout that you can get. It's truenaturecounseling.net/break the cycle. And it's about um, breaking the cycle of attracting unavailable people.
Yes, interesting indeed. Attracting other people is something else. Miss Amber Lavin, let's support her, because if you support her, more and more and more coaching to come. So, Miss Amber, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you. It was great to meet you, Daniel.
Monica people, see you soon.